This video is aimed at advanced developers who are comfortable with some basic JavaScript, and we're going to talk about the ability to send commands from one component to another component. So you can see here that I actually have a very simple grid that happens to have a row expander, and so right now there's just one grid running, which is this grid, and it has an ID of grid 1. And so if we go into Firebug's DOM inspector, so I'm in Firefox right now and I have the Firebug add-in running. If you don't have Firebug installed, we definitely recommend that you install Firebug. So if I go into the DOM now and look into the DOM, I can see that one of the JavaScript variables in the global namespace is called grid1 underbar grid object. So this is the object, this is the JavaScript object that represents this grid over here, and by calling methods on this object I can affect this grid. So if I go back now to the console, let's just go here and copy this name to the clipboard. So if I now go to the console and execute methods on that grid object, which I can do by going window, because we know it's a global object, then paste in the name of the global object, and now go and call, say, any one of the methods of this object. So let's go here and say, for example, so let's say we'd like to call, say, the set value method of that grid. So we'll do this, we'll click run now, and you'll see that we're going to change the value of the sales rep field in row 3. So I go there and hit run, and you can see we've changed the value in row 3. So right now basically what we see in the DOM, DOM stands for document object model, is just one grid component, which is the parent grid, grid1 underbar grid obj. So now if I were to go and let me just undo that and expand the row expander right now, I can see that this row expander shows two grids, invoice items and customers, but we haven't yet clicked on the customers tab, so that grid doesn't actually exist yet. So let's now go and refresh, and so now what I see is two grid objects here. Here's grid1 underbar grid obj, so that's the parent grid, and now grid1 underbar and then the name of this alias was just constructed on the fly by Alpha 5. So you can see there's a simple naming convention going on here. Underbar row 1 because we were in row 1 of the row expander, G1 because we're in the first grid of the row expander, underbar grid obj. If I now go and open up the second grid, and if I go now and refresh, I see now that there are 3 open grid objects right now, grid 1 and then grid 1 row 1 grid 1 and then row 1 grid 2. So now if I were to actually close that down and then open up another row right now and then refresh, now I can see there's a 4th grid that's been opened. So if I were to now go here and say copy that name to the clipboard and then go back to the console, and let's comment out that line over there and paste in that, and so I'll go window there, and let me just type in the rest of the command. So what we're going to be doing now is setting the value of the quantity field in row 1 to 5. So let's watch that field value over there. So go ahead and press run, and you can see we've changed it. So we were able to talk to this explicit grid by knowing its alias. Now the problem is that the name of the child alias, though, can be difficult to know. In this case, the naming convention of the child grid was quite obvious. But what we're going to discuss in the next video are techniques that make it easy for one grid to know what the alias of the other grid is so that it can send commands to that grid. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video.